Delay, okay. Off my back. Can I get it off my back? Can I get it off my back? Can I get it off my back? Off my back. What is going on? Welcome to Making the Case for Your Lawyer Dreams. I, of course, am the host, the founder of BecomingJD, where our goal, our purpose is to be able to help you guys get the resources, the tips, the gems, the blueprints, the inspiration you need to continue to fight for your lawyer dreams. And every Wednesday, we've been blessed to be able to have guests come on from all walks of life. Judges, lawyers, recent grad, law students, admission experts to come and share their stories to inspire you to go ahead and continue to fight for your lawyer dreams. We've been really blessed. If in fact you had an opportunity, you could check out our past episodes on our YouTube channel, BecomingJD. So make sure we have over 81 episodes. And we're going to keep on doing this every Wednesday at 8 p.m. to bring you guys the tips, jewels that you need to continue to go through your journey. I'm really excited about the guests that we have coming on tonight. I want you guys also to be able to understand that as we go on this journey, things are going to be tough. It's going to be tough. However, I want you guys to also realize that it being tough doesn't mean that you can't do it. And just because you may get a rejection, just because there may be a delay, it does not mean that the journey is over. It just means that you have to update and make some changes. Each week, we're continuing to get more people into law school. This week, we got 4 more students into law school. And so I'm really, really excited for you guys who are in the midst of waiting to hear from law schools. I want you guys to be encouraged. Understand that the one thing that you can do that I prescribe for you not to do is to do nothing. Because right now is an opportunity for you guys right now to be able to navigate, connect with law schools, schedule informational sessions with them, go and visit these schools if in fact you are there. Right now, I want you to be able to understand that if in fact a law school has not told you no, that means there's still a chance. And I, for one, like to be in control of my chances. Instead of waiting passively, I like to be proactive and make a difference. This has worked for so many of my students out there. Do not be afraid. Go schedule those informational visits. Go visit the schools because it can actually make a difference. And so I want you guys to be able to understand that this journey is something that's not for the weak. And if in fact it is hard, it's because it's supposed to be. And so I want to give a big shout out to all my people out there who have begun the process of passing the bar. Congratulations. To my people out there who have not passed it, I want you to understand that a delay is not a denial and to continue to push forward because it's still something that can and will happen if in fact it's something that you want. One of the posts that I made earlier this week, it talked about us being able to be open and learning to correction because that is the path towards growth. So understand that each step, you guys, when things get hard, it's because it's a signal for us to be able to take the next step to grow. So continue to take those lessons and learn from that. And so let me get off my soapbox. So we have our guest here, Attorney Stephanie, and I want you guys to make sure and lock in. She went to New York, and she wants to tell you guys what she did, how she did it, so that way you can do it too. So make sure that you stay locked in, all right? So I'm going to see how long. There we go. What's going on, sis? How we doing?
Hi, how are
I
you?
am blessed. I am blessed. It is almost Friday, and we made it to Hump Wednesday, so I'm good. How about you, sis?
I'm hanging in there. I have some problematic cases, but I'm hanging in there.
And one of the things, of course, I want to give you the floor to be able to formally introduce yourself. And again, first, I want to thank you so much for taking time to share your story, to share your gems and blueprints, because I know somebody out there needs to see it and hear it.
Perfect. Perfect. And listen, Anthony, I just want to thank you and give you your flowers because I was just exploring on Becoming JD The website, it is so resourceful. It has, I mean, everything that a potential law school student and or attorney will need. So it's extremely informative. It has so many resources for you to put all of that together to help someone else navigate the law school journey or the attorney journey. That's amazing. That is amazing. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. You got me over here blushing. Oh my goodness. No, but for me, it's just like I think about since we went on this journey ourselves. A lot of
Mhm,
us was going through it blind and trying to
mhm,
figure it out. And I think for so many people out there who want to be lawyers, who had that dream of being a lawyer, they
mhm.
just need direction. And one of
Absolutely.
the reasons why we do our show is to kind of normalize our presence in this field. Because we get daily reminders, sis, of our absence. But I think oftentimes by seeing
Mhm.
representation of people doing what you want to do, going to the schools that you went to, I think that gives them the motivation to continue to push forward because I really
Absolutely.
feel like that's something I didn't have when I was going through this process.
Nope. Nope.
And we were just like this, God, please let
Winging
it
it.
work. But
Winging it. Okay.
nevertheless, first things first, I want you to do a formal introduction, and then after that, we'll go ahead and dive deep because sis, you done did a lot. I'm talking about Peace Corps in Africa. I mean, doing it big in Southern, and then of course also now hanging your own shingle and doing it on your own, building your own legacy.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, as you said, listen, I think the theme for my life is just unconventional, right? And society has these norms of how things should look. And sometimes I think we get into just honing in on how things should look instead of just accepting things on how it's going in our lives. So I graduated from NYIT, New York Institute of Technology, and lived in New York all my life. And when I graduated with a behavioral science bachelor's degree and a minor in criminal justice. So I interned in lockup, and that's when I first got a taste of the criminal justice system, being released on your own recognizance, interviewing offenders to see if they qualified for like legal aid and public
Mhm.
defenders.
Right, right.
And I was like, okay, I like this, but let me take some exams. So I started taking like law enforcement exams, New York State Troopers, uh,
Okay.
yeah, police officer exams. I interviewed with the U.S. Secret Service. And then I just started working for law firms. So, and working for law firms, I worked for like Paul Weiss and Baker Hostetler. Those are more of the top 10 firms in
Right, right.
NYC. And they're very like polished, white collar, very, all about litigation, right? So, working in firms like that, it exposed me to how business corporation would be and like business transactional, working
Mhm.
in transactional areas. And I didn't really like it. I was like, this is not for me because I'm just a people person. I'm Aries by nature. I just love interacting with people. Oh, hi Toby. She's so sweet.
She is. She
So
is.
Toby, yeah, I've worked with her. She's amazing at the DA's office. But so in working in law firms, that's when I got the call to go to Peace Corps. So I was like, man, I really want to go to law school, but some attorneys spoke to me, and I will encourage everyone, be very open when when opportunities are presented to you in life. Be very open. And the attorneys told me, they said, listen, you can always come back and work for law firms, but none of us in this room can say we lived in Africa for three
Yeah.
years. So I was like, okay. So I went to Peace Corps and I taught computer technology. I went to Uganda. I met so many different expats. I learned all about like US aid and how things worked and international on the international level. And I even learned how the criminal justice system worked out there because
Mm.
I was robbed and I tried my own case there. I tried my own case there. I was robbed, and not by a Ugandan either. It was like this person that was coming there for asylum, and he just like took my bag and ran. But I ended up finding him because he dropped his SIM card, and I found his
Oh
number,
wow.
and I hired a PI to help me, and the PI got his phone records, and we went to the court. We got, a magistrate to sign off on his phone records, and we literally like hunted him down, and he had to pay me back. He ended up paying me back for my MacBook. Yeah. So, yeah, so that was kind of fun, like being a vigilante in Uganda. But yeah, when I came back, I was just like, okay, Stephanie, you did Peace Corps. You got to be serious. You got to go to law school. And that's when I started studying for my LSAT. LSAT is so scary because you get your score if you're not a standardized test taker, which I wasn't, right? And when where I grew up in Long Island, it wasn't the best area, so the education system wasn't the best. Reading comprehension was kind of, I could get it, but I wasn't as quick on my toes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
timing was really hard for me on the LSAT. And hi Jess. Timing was really good. And basically I was just like, okay, I have to like really hone in on getting these questions down in a good amount of time. So I took the LSAT three times. And the third time, I was like, okay, I got like an average score. I didn't get all crazy into scores because I was like, listen, as long as I can get anything from like a 148 to a 150, I'm like, I'm good.
I'm gonna
So
be going somewhere. I don't know where.
somewhere. So, and I was unconventional. I had work experience. So, I see in one of your videos you were talking about addendums. And you were talking about how addendums usher you into the room without being there, how they explain the why behind some of the answers on your applications. I thought that was an amazing video you did because addendums are very important. And I think that is the reason why I got accepted to law school is because of my addendum. So yeah, I got accepted to Charlotte School of Law,
Oh,
and
wow.
a year in, it closed.
Yeah.
A year in, it closed, and I was mortified. I'm like, what do I do now? So, after being accepted there and doing a year of law school, it was a lot of
Yeah.
politics. The administration at the time, it was Trump, and the person in charge of DOE was Betsy DeVos, and she was actually linked to the very investment company that invested in Charlotte School of Law. So there was a lot of like shady
Oh,
dealings.
wow.
North Carolina was not having it. And North Carolina was like, listen, we're going to take accreditation. So with all of that said, I ended up transferring. And it was the best thing for me. I transferred to Southern University Law. And I drove that truck, 16-inch, attached my car to the back, and I drove to Louisiana. I got a taste of HBCU life because I've never went to a HBCU. I was PWI undergrad. So it was just amazing meeting the people in the South, learning a lot about my history, being able to even internship with some federal companies, interning with the Department of Interior in DC, and just really establishing relationships with some of the people in Louisiana and learning about how the civil codes are and how law works in the South, in the Deep South. So
So I gotta ask a
after,
quick question. I
yep,
gotta jump in here real quick,
yep,
right? Because I love hearing what my brothers and sisters from up north think when they come down south. You know, because I think it's so many, and I speak about it seriously. Like it's so many law school opportunities down south,
hmm
but a lot of people, especially up north, they have
yeah,
reservations. They be like, man, Mississippi now that was about 100 years ago, but I ain't trying to go down there and be with them country folks.
yep.
What would you say to the other northern brothers and sisters who may have reservations about coming down south?
Oh, I encourage them. Like even, Toby, I said, hey, when you apply to law school, apply to the South. I tell all the people that I know applying to law school because I'll tell you this, it's almost hybrid. You get the best of both
Yeah.
worlds because you're going to learn different types of law. You're going to be around different types of people, and it's going to be really good for you to be exposed, right? Because in the North, we have our own culture here. Everyone knows,
Right.
like New York is its own country. Someone made the joke when the woman went to Pakistan and she was causing all that ruckus. They, she made the joke, and people were like, "Listen, New York is his own country." So being in the North, I feel sometimes we're a bit, how can I say it, a bit closed off. We're like in
Right.
our own bubble.
Right.
And when you go to the South, people are like, "Oh yeah, black codes," and I'm like, "Black codes?" They're like, "Girl, you don't know about black codes, and let me school you. Sit down." So, yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of Northerners to be exposed to the South because you're going to learn a lot.
And for you guys who just joined us, we're live and in full effect with attorney Stephanie, who is literally sharing an amazing story. For a lot
Mhm.
of you guys out there, I want you guys, we oftentimes are creating barriers of why we can't go to law school. We've created this picture perfect image of what
Yep.
a perfect ideal law student is. And of course, for so many, we don't fit that. And so we believe that we can't go, or we believe it's too late, or we don't have the
Mhm.
right experience, or I saw the new post we have now. People said went to school at 25, did this at 27, married at 30, and I'm like, and people have this timeline, and they think because the time has gone by
Mhm.
that they can't do it
Mhm.
anymore. But I
Yep.
wonder, you're like, hey, listen, I'm going Peace Corps, I'm doing a little bit of this, I got the legal experience before, and what do you say to people who at times find themselves saying no, not because they can't do it, but because they can't, I guess, see it?
So I'll say this. You can't put limitations
Mm.
on your own
Let's
life,
be
regardless how it looks. And my family and friends will tell you. I took the bar 3 times, and I'm not ashamed to say it. My story is very unique, and it's my story, and I embrace that story. It's my journey. But I overcame every hunch because mentally, I'd convinced myself nothing can stop me.
mm.
Nothing. And I even saw this young woman on Instagram earlier, and I think I started following her. I hope I did. She's in the medical field,
Mm-hmm.
but she inspired me because she said she took the MCAT 3 times, and it was just this barrier because she didn't really have good education. She's Nigerian. She is first generation, so she came over here. Her English was a little, sketchy, but she says, "Listen, she went to a Caribbean island just to go to med school, came back, did like some LM program, got into another school. Like she literally relocated her life just to complete her task. And now she's a full on doctor, surgeon. So sometimes I'll encourage people, sometimes it's going to look
Yeah.
unconventional. You cannot compare yourself and say, well, I didn't get this LSAT score, or I wanted to go to NYU and not, Southern Law. Don't get into the numbers, don't get into the hype. You have to keep your eye on the prize. You just want one thing. You want that license to be able to practice law. So the Harvard law grad is doing the same thing that I'm doing, the Southern law grad is doing, right? So, and listen, I'm not going to say that schools and numbers don't play a part if you want to go more transactional. But I encourage people to always start at the DA's office. I may be a little biased, but
A little
you
bit.
you get exposure at the DA's office. You get so much exposure. They threw me in to arguing before 5 Supreme Court justices. I was in appeals doing briefs on SORA, which is a Sexual Offender Registration Act. And it's like, when people are committing rape and they're trying to appeal post conviction, I was arguing before the Supreme Court, right out of law school.
Wow.
And a lot of people say that doesn't happen in law school. They say, oh, no, that doesn't happen. But mentally, I knew, again, you can do whatever you want to do. If you want to be in appeals, then that's what you pitch. You want to be in appeals. So I would say things may not look conventional, but you may have to take a little unconventional route. Take your LSAT, uproot yourself from living in Texas and come to New York, or
Right.
uproot yourself from New York and go to Louisiana.
Right.
Yeah.
Because literally, I think we got a sis in the chat. She said she ran from DeSantis from Florida and went up north. And so I think a lot of times for you guys out there, one of the things I think is amazing is being able to normalize the power of pivoting, right?
Mhm.
Okay, I
Mhm.
have to retake the LSAT. I have to retake the bar. hey, you know what? These schools that I thought I was going to go to, well, I got into this school in this other area. I may not have family there. I may not know anybody there, but
Mhm.
that's the path that I'm going to go in.
Mhm.
And I think for a lot of people, by us having these conversations, it becomes normal. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, so it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to be all right. And I think the thing that's amazing about that, sis, is I oftentimes tell people, lawyers, we are built different. Why do you say that? Because there's so much easier ways to make money. And we knew from the beginning, before we started this process, that this shit was going to be hard.
Hard.
And before you make money, you got to do all of this stuff. And we're like, okay, hand me the
Yep.
book. And so
Yep.
I always ask people, I say, so when did you fall in love with law? Got some brown sugar vibes to it.
I fell in love with Law. Is yeah, because when did you fall in love with
Yep.
hip hop? I love that movie. That's one of my favorite movies. Anthony, I love that movie. Um, so I fell in love with Law, I would say undergrad. So I
Wow.
had to be like 22 years old. I'm 43 today. So like yeah, like 22 years ago. 21, 22 years ago. I just loved, and that's why I started taking those exams.
Mm.
Another thing that I encourage everyone to do. If you have a heart for law, I see someone, Carpenter Law Sports Marketing. She says she's on LSAT number 7. If you have a love, I will always encourage you, keep going, and don't get caught up on the score. If you can get a 148 to like a 151, shoot, even sometimes a 146 if your undergrad is a high GPA and you write your addendum. But I would say really look at other law schools. Like don't if your LSAT score you can get, high 140s, 150, you can still get accepted to law schools. So I would say continue to focus on what you love. So if law is what you love, why would you go be a personal trainer at a gym? So my life has always told a story on my resume. So from undergrad, interning and lockup to working at firms, even as an administrative assistant, I was like a secretary, a legal secretary. And I never forget a recruiter told me, when I was like, I want to be a paralegal so I can start learning more about the law and diving into more of a substantive work and not just administrative.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, "You are secretary. You can't go into that field.
Mm-hmm.
You're pigeonholed into being a legal secretary." And I was like, "Huh, yeah, have a good day." And I hung up on her because I was like, Stephanie Nelson will never be prohibited from doing what she wants.
We will not
And
put
literally,
box.
like, yeah, a month later, I got a paralegal job. I just went ham. I was like applying. And a firm entrusted me in Long Island and they hired me as a paralegal, a Medicaid paralegal. So that's when I started jumping around. I was an IP paralegal. I learned about trademarks. I learned about immigration law as a paralegal. I learned about Medicaid as a paralegal and trust in the states. And then last but not least, I learned contracts as a paralegal. I did compliance for financial firms. So I was jumping around as paralegals and I was like, okay, you know what? I think I like criminal law the most. And that's when I went to law school.
And also think about this too. In the midst of that process,
Hmm.
what were you doing? You were building relationships.
Absolutely.
Building relationships. I tell people on this lawyer journey, I mean, God has blessed so many of us with the gift of gab.
Hmm.
You got to talk if you want to be a lawyer. I mean, unless you're going to do research, then you could know about that. But so much of this is based off of personal relationships, you
Yeah.
guys. And we are blessed now with platforms like Instagram, TikTok,
Yep.
Twitter, X, or whatever you want to call it, where literally the lawyers who you admire or look up to
Hmm.
are available. Now,
Yep.
I mean, they go respond? No, but I'm my shot says, I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. Back in the day when I was trying to get on, because my mom was an accountant, my dad was a nurse, so I had no choice
Hmm.
in my family. So I knew I had to just go ahead. I would carry my resume and go knock on law firms' doors. I was like, okay, that can I get an opportunity? But you
Yep.
guys, you could literally send a DM, even go to ChatGPT, make the message, and try to get opportunities. And these opportunities open doors. And literally, what Sis is sharing with you guys is she laid a foundation that she's still being able to pull from now, from the time that she did it when she was an intern.
Absolutely.
Am I right, Sis?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. Like, literally, half the jobs I received are from former relationships from years ago when I got out of law school, even my internships. Working at the DA's, and the bar. When you take the bar, you have to get letters of recommendations. Those letters came from years back, from people from years back. Even I met someone, Anthony, you posted recently, there was a young girl saying how she wants to work for the UN. I met someone on the train because I
Yeah.
talked to everyone, and I said, "Do you work for the UN?" And he
y'all,
had a
y'all
little
caught that?
badge.
I talked to everyone on the train. Pull up.
Everyone, yeah. I just talk. People, like my brother is like cracking up. He's like, "You just talk to everyone," and he goes, "Yeah, I do. I'm the head of aviation." He said, "Would you like me to give you a tour one day?" And I said, "Absolutely."
Wow.
Older, nice Nigerian guy. And I was like, he's probably not gonna, keep in touch. He gave me that tour of the United Nations. He sure did. And that's when he was like, if you want to work here, you should have a bit of international experience. And I said, okay. And that's what made me go to a Peace Corps because I went to Peace Corps for international experience. So when I come back, I can apply as a legal officer for the UN.
I mean, think about it, right? I think what's important for people to be able to understand is that on this lawyer journey, what you have to realize is crazy to say it like this,
Hmm.
but it's a lot of people that got the same dream as you. A lot of people
Wow.
that are gonna have the same scores as you, same
Hmm.
GPA as you, went to the same school as you.
Hmm.
So what are you gonna do that's gonna make you different? What are you going to do to give people an opportunity to be able to reach out? Because one thing that people will say, well, she went to Southern, so, and that's not a T14 school, but sis networked herself so much so that she's over here before the Supreme Court.
Yep.
And so I think I want you guys to be able to hear in this story the value of networking. That you could, I'll say this, going to Ivy League schools will get your foot in the door. But literally, going to any law school provides you an opportunity to get your foot in the door. Will you have to work more? Probably.
Hmm.
But guess what? Once I get my foot in that mother, it's a wrap. Am I right? Because I know I done did it.
You're
I'm in there.
right. You're right.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm in here. If
Yep.
I get here, oh, I ain't leaving.
Yep. You're right. And it's interesting too, you say that because now, depending on jurisdiction, now we have to kind of be pointed, right? In New York, it's like, hey, as long as you have your bar license, it's given, we gonna give you a job. Unless you want to go to like the top 10 firms,
Yeah.
but then it's almost like you're pushing paper at those top 10 firms. You're coming in as an entry level associate, you're being worked like a horse, and
Mm.
it's just not as appealing. And that's just in my opinion. But all that to say, to your point, we're similarly situated. Like people who are basically, going to the Ivy Leagues, but working for the DA's office, we're in the same class. We're all prosecutors,
Right.
right? So I would say, yeah, try not to get so caught up in numbers because it could literally keep you back from the ultimate goal, and that is just being a licensed attorney.
And again, for you guys who just joining us, we're live and in full effect with attorney Stephanie Nelson. Make sure y'all follow her on Instagram. Sis is
Yeah.
talking to everybody on the train, y'all. For real. Y'all need to pull up and get on that train so y'all can go ahead and connect.
Yeah.
But one of the things oftentimes I love talking about is I opened up talking about the show, talking about challenges.
Mhm.
You know, people oftentimes assume because it's like, oh my goodness, she got her own firm, she had it easy. She don't understand what I'm going through. I had to take the LSAT multiple times and this and that. But I oftentimes tell people that literally our journey, our lawyer journey, is constant needing to pivot and change. And growing comfortable with saying, okay, I don't know that. Damn, I got that wrong. Okay, I need to listen to that.
Mhm.
And so I want you to tell me, what was the first time you realized you had to make changes to take the next step in your lawyer journey?
So there were two times I realized, well, three, in the journey to becoming a lawyer. The first time I realized I was studying for the LSAT, I took a class. The course didn't work for me because I was working. And that was just a waste of $1,500. So then I tried to study on my own. I got the really good books that a lot of the attorneys were referring. And that didn't really work. So I said, you know what? Maybe I need to be a little more like tunnel vision and get a personal tutor. And the personal tutor worked. So it was a boy in law school, young guy, and he would Zoom with me every week. And as to your point, which you said a couple minutes ago about investing, right? If you really want it and this is your dream, you can't look at money because this is a very expensive journey. So he charged me $100 an hour, and that was better for me. It was 101, and he was going through all the little strategies for the LSAT. The second thing I noticed was with the bar. I was working every time I studied. So I took it 3 times, but the first 2 times I was working. And everyone said, don't work when you're studying for the bar. But I was like, oh, I need this money. Da, da, da. The third time,
All the time when people say that, I'm like, so you gonna pay my bills? you know, the disconnect there is like, well, how are we gonna make this work? I got all these loans. I mean, when I had it, I couldn't get a bar loan. So you gotta figure it out.
but you want to hear something crazy? And I'm a woman of faith. I know some people may not be, but I'm a woman of faith. Um, when I first graduated from Southern, it was during COVID, and I was so sad because I missed out on my walking across the stage and stuff. It was like at the brink of COVID. Um, and I did not get approved for a bar prep loan. And I was like, whatever. And I was like, that was weird because I don't really have
Yeah.
like bad credit. Fast forward when I was at the DA's office and I had to take the bar, I literally applied again. I was like, hey, you never know. And I got approved. So it was at that time that I needed to be approved because God knew. I was like, okay. I took 10 weeks off from the office and I literally studied nonstop and took that little bar prep loan and paid my rent because I was living in Harlem, and I passed. And mind you, 4 days before the bar, I was studying with a friend named Rakaya. We had 4 days left. Rakaya's in Georgia, taking the Georgia bar. I'm taking the New York bar, but many of the MBE areas and sections are similar. My brother calls me while I'm on Zoom going over questions, and he was like crying hysterically. And I was like, what's going on? Come to find out my dad had passed.
Oh no.
Yep. And I was like, this is not happening 4 days before my bar. So I'm like hysterical. I go to his house. He's found at his house. He passed away. So now I'm like having to plan his funeral. My brother's like freaking out, and he has his own family, wife, and stuff. So he's just, like, what do I do? Like, we've never had immediate death in our family. So it was just very new for everyone. But I flew to Buffalo. It was the first time at that juncture that the bar had opened up
Oh,
physically because it had
oh,
been
yeah.
online. Yeah, and I was planning the funeral while I took that 2-day bar. And that's the thing, guys, going back to by any means necessary. I knew my dad wanted me to pass because he was texting me, like, you better not be hanging out. You better be studying for that bar. And, right. So, when people say, oh, they kind of make excuses. When you really want something in life, you have to do it by any means necessary. So, yeah, there was an obstacle before me, but it didn't mean that the two can coexist. I still had to move forward, and I still could honor my dad. So after I took the bar, we gave him a beautiful memorial. I made sure everyone was there, a beautiful repast. So everything, worked out, and then I still got the results that I passed the bar. So I think that it's a really hard journey, especially if you have challenging things that happen in the interim while you're getting there. But I would encourage everyone to really have a growth mindset to say, this is only temporary and I'm gonna get through it.
And I just feel like honestly, it's like a rites of passage.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, just being able to accept this is going to be hard. No,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to hurt. It's going to be, but you know what? At the end of the day, it'll be over. And
Yeah.
I and remember those times, sis, when you were doing finals, preparing for finals, had your
Oh,
whole wall covered up in
them damn
papers, like,
highlighters, Anthony, with the whiteboards. Did you
oh
have
my,
whiteboards?
all three boards at one time.
Yes.
You thought it was cute when you saw people post it, like, nah, that is real. But do you remember how tired you were? But for some reason, after those finals, the fatigue went away.
We were going out getting daiquiris because you know Louisiana's
You know
real
how
packed.
we go down there, drive through daiquiris. Let's get it.
You know about Wait, where are you from?
I'm from Nashville, but I was in school. I went to school in New Orleans, so I was definitely.
Clock it.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. But I think one of the things that's awesome is I really want to be able to ask you about is I always love asking you guys about how was that feeling
Mm.
when you held your hand up to get sworn in, all that work, all
I
that.
cried. I cried. It was such a weight lifted off my shoulders. And that song, A Lovely Day, when I wake up in the
Yeah.
morning, that played, and I cry harder because it was like, it's going to be a lovely day. That song just came right on. It was crazy because I was doing it virtual.
Oh,
So I was in my house.
right.
I did it virtual. Yeah. So, and the crazy thing about it too, virtually only three people would show. So let's say 80 people getting sworn in. For some reason, only three people would show. And I was one of the three.
Oh my goodness. And I hope I asked that question because I want you guys out there to see the joy and the excitement, and it's all worth it. And the funny thing about it is, it's like, and then as you get reality shit, like, oh shit, I'm this is real. This is not play no more.
Mm-hmm.
Realize
Mm-hmm.
that when it's like, oh, okay.
Yep. Yep. So it's, I mean, listen, it was a hard journey, and I was at the days office at the time, and some of my peers had passed. And I still was like, you got to keep going. You can't think about what the left or right are thinking. You can't think about who's looking, who's watching. You just have to keep focus on yourself and keep your eye on the prize, and always believe in yourself. That's number one, because if you don't believe in yourself, it's going to be a challenging journey, because you're not going to manifest that it can happen. So I really believe strong in manifestation and believing that you can get it done, irrespective of the challenges that are presented to you.
Now, one of the things that's amazing now, in New York, I mean, Latina James has definitely been holding it down over there.
Mhm.
And I've wondered, because of Latina James being there, how welcoming of an environment had was it for you at the when you worked as a prostitute? Because even though representation, of course, is something that we always strive for, oftentimes it's something that we really don't see.
That's funny you said that, because so I prosecuted out of the district attorney's office in Bronx County. So I was in the Bronx. And the Bronx had the first female black district attorney, DA Darcel Clark,
Oh
when I
wow!
was there. Right. First in history. And she made the second round, so she's on her second stint, second or third.
Mhm.
And under her administration, listen, I loved it. I loved the DA's office, but to your point, I was still very surprised to see under a black DA in her leadership, there were still a few black attorneys,
Right, right.
a few black prosecutors. And so now it's majority of us coming from very diverse backgrounds and looking at cases through a very relatable lens, and then our white counterparts and peers, looking at them through a very small lens. So that was a bit different. That was a bit different.
And I think also think about it, sis, too. And I think for a lot of people, when you make that adjustment, it's a huge reality check when you go from HBCU life back to real life again. Because I remember when I went from Morehouse back to real life, it was a culture shock. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
also, I'm gonna say something. You tell me what you think about this. I love HBCUs. Without my HBCU, I definitely would not have a college degree. But
Wow.
one of the things I tell people is
Mm-hmm.
that I said we can't just limit ourselves to HBCUs because there are other schools that can provide us with opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what do you think about that position, and what would you say to people who are only keeping themselves in the HBCU realm? Because now you can say that you've experienced both.
Hmm. I mean, listen, I love HBCUs because let me tell you, even in the law school is a beast. It's not, like it's not a typical bachelor degree program. And that's what I tell a lot of people looking to get into a JD program. I'm like, it's a different beast. So imagine now having someone like a mother, and I'm thinking of Professor Tracy. She
Yeah.
taught UCC 9 security transactions, and someone like her saying, "Wake your ass up! I know you're not sleeping in my classroom." Or Professor Shaniqua Gray saying, "Oh, so nobody knows the cases today, so y'all didn't read the case law. Well, I have my license, I have my bar license, so I'm leaving. When y'all ready, y'all can come back when y'all ready." And her picking up her Louis Vuitton and putting on her leather jacket and getting up and leaving, and we looking around like, did she just
You
leave
really?
us? She was like, "Cause y'all not about to waste my time." So going to an HBCU, that type of life, oh, I lived for it. It gagged me. I was like, wait, what? Because PWIs, they just let us get away with anything. But at the HBCU, there's gonna be a little accountability. So yeah, and there's only 6 HBCU law schools left in the US. I think we're at 6,
Yeah.
right? And for law school. So I think it's almost kind of like a rite of passage. It's
Yeah.
almost like, oh, I went to, the Southern and the best band, and then I went, or someone saying they went to like Thurgood Marshall Law, or, you know, those HBCU law schools. I would say it is a good experience. If you can get a chance to go to a HBCU law school, I would probably suggest that someone pick that other than a PWI. Just my opinion.
And again, we love all law schools. And to be honest with you, HBCUs are just special. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to find a law school that's going to match your energy and your vibe and give you the support. And if you ain't heard about the family that they got at Southern, I mean, it's a family.
I love it. I love my alma mater. I love it.
And
I love Southern.
and what I tell people when you're selecting a school, because think about it, you're making a 6-figure investment. You want to
Hmm.
make sure it's going to be a place that's going to support you and give you what you need to do your best.
Yeah.
Some people can go through the transactional route at a bigger law school. I know
Hmm.
for me, I couldn't do that. I needed that community, I needed that support. And oftentimes, I tell people when making a selection,
Hmm.
have 22, 23 years of experience from your own personal life to know what you need to do your best. And so you want to be able to select a school that aligns with that. And so I want to go to some questions I want to ask you. You still there, sis? I think you're loading a little bit. But nevertheless, you still there? Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I want to ask some more questions, right?
Hmm.
I want you to tell me, because I mean, you're in the city that never sleeps where things are always happening. I mean, we got the Diddy thing going on around the corner.
Ooh, that Diddy trial. Oh my God. It's starting to be a little intense. And I was going to go tomorrow, actually, but I can't because I have a hearing for a matrimonial matter. And I'm so annoyed, but I'm going to go Friday.
And the thing about it, for you guys don't know, tell them about how this is like, how you can get tickets to go, because you can't just roll up in there. Tell them how that process works. It's crazy.
Well, if you go really early, I know it's like maximum capacity if you go past like 9. So if you go really early, I believe it's open to the public because a lot of journalists are getting in there and they don't even have IDs. I have a
Oh,
secure pass. So when you practice law here, you get something called a secure pass. A unified court system grants it to you, and that's how you get into the courtrooms, and you don't ever have to kind of like worry about getting checked and stuff, but waiting on long
hey,
lines. But
hey, listen, I'm VIP. All right, I got my VIP pass,
I got my
so
secure pass.
I put in the work. I earned it.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
The benefit I get, right?
Yep, yep. So, yeah, so with that said, the city that never sleeps. Yeah, it's challenging, but this goes back to manifesting what I want and not looking to the left or right because a lot of people would say you're opening your own law office in Midtown Manhattan. All those big firms, you're going to be a small fish and a big C. But I'm like, no, I can be a big fish because they started off somewhere too.
Mm.
So, my way of thinking is a very growth mindset, not a fixed one. So I'm thinking, okay, expansion, right? So it will be expanded. Right now, I started with myself, but then, I acquired a new paralegal and she's amazing. She's like helping me with my motions now and kind of like the gatekeeper of the firm, and I'm sure by the end of this year, I'll have an associate. So I believe that, we just expand and we just grow and just, again, keep focus and set your goals and everything that you do, make sure that they are going to get you closer to the goals. Just stay the course.
Now, one of the things I think is amazing is oftentimes I tell people that shift in mindset.
Hmm.
Where first, it's like I just want to I just want to get into law school. I just want to get this score. Oftentimes, I feel like a large percentage of our journey, we're on the survivor mode, right?
Hmm.
And I think what's amazing when you make that transition where you say, hold on, I want to build my own legacy. I want
Hmm.
to hang my own shingle.
Hmm.
I feel like that's when that shift from survivor mode goes away. And I wonder for you could share the story. What happened to make you be like, well, you know what? Damn, I can do this myself.
Period. Because I was like, first of all, I don't like being told what to do.
That
Like,
part, you
like,
better take it
especially,
now.
huh? What did you
I
say?
said they better take that bass out their voice.
Because I mean, listen, there's always going to be a set of rules and regulations to follow. I get that. But when you are kind of adamant about trying a case a certain way, or you really have a strong belief, and then someone's telling you to do the opposite, that's a little problematic for me. And also, um, I believe that having a law license, it's lucrative. It's almost like being a business owner once you get the license, right? Because it's almost like, let's say you're a licensed mechanic. You can go around now fixing any car and you can charge what you want. You can even have a theme of how you're going to be a mechanic. Okay, I'm only going to fix German made cars. So I'm only going to go to Mercedes, Beamers, like, or makeup artists. I'm only going to do celebrities. I'm going to be a celeb makeup artist or here. Like, once you are licensed in a certain field, you can really, sky's the limit. You can just, launch and expand the way you want to. So I was just like, wow, I have an actual license and I can take on clients and help people the way I see fit to help them. And I'm a little unconventional. The other day for a case, I called the pastor. I said, I said, Pastor, I'm calling on behalf of SL Nelson Law Firm. He was like, okay. And I said, there's a church member that has been harassing my client, making false claims and making it very hard. And I was like, I'm going to forward you the actual order. He's allowed to be inside that church. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Send me the order, whatever, because this woman kept calling the cops on my client. And I'm like, I'm a gag her. So, I just went on the back end. So, sometimes when you work for firms and stuff, you can't be that unconventional. Everything is very confined in the way how they want to do things. But as an attorney, as long as you stay ethical, you can kind of pivot and try cases the way you want to try it. So that's what made me fall in love with doing my own thing. I can't even imagine working for a firm or going back
Right.
to a organization or in-house, or because this is my own shop. Like, I can accept what I want to accept. I decline. My paralegal sends emails declining services. I don't have to take every service if I don't want to. So it's flexible. I can sleep in if I don't have court one morning. I can get up and travel the way I want to. But it's also demanding. I see someone said law school is not for the weak. I cry every night. Oh, legally, Jen Kim.